listeners, to another power packed episode of BizBlend where business meets brilliance in under 20 minutes. I'm your host, Sana, and today's conversation is one that's going to get your heart racing in more ways than one. Listeners, joining me is Brandon Cullen, a former pro hockey player turned fitness industry trailblazer and the visionary founder behind MADabolic, the strength gym that's rewriting the rules of group fitness. Now, with 36 locations across North America and growing, Brandon isn't just selling workouts. He's building a movement for high performers who reject average. Well, we are diving into entrepreneurship, niche branding, and the grit and resilience it takes to go from the ice rink to owning a bold, disruptive fitness empire. So, whether you are scaling a brand or just dreaming of starting one, this episode will light a fire under your strategy. So, with that, Brandon, welcome to the show, and it's an extreme honor having you with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Okay, so Brandon, first of all, what a transition. I mean, from pro athlete to purpose driven CEO. So what was that biggest mindset shift for you that you had to make when going from pro hockey to building Metabolic?
It actually was pretty natural because I think a lot of the qualities that allow you to play at high level athletics kind of translate into entrepreneurship.
Mm.
There's a concept of building a team, being on a team, and being accountable to a team, especially as you go to scale. So I think it was more natural for me to go into something like this where your career is kind of on the line every day versus maybe getting into a more traditional 9 to 5 job and having, I don't even know if I'm saying this right, but having more kind of say in the outcome of your day to day grind.
Yeah. I can relate with that, because um, I have had my own experience shifting careers, pivoting careers, and also that emotional effect, I should say, roller coaster of identity redefinition. So, that is really inspiring, Brandon. Okay, so now fitness industry is highly competitive. So talking about metabolic, it speaks directly to high achieving, results driven audience. So there is that niche there. So how do you maintain that focus, that niche focus while scaling across North America?
Yeah, it's difficult for sure, but the way I always say it is a lot of the companies who choose not to niche, you have a lot of voices to listen to. I always mention, when you take a shotgun approach to business, you end up having less of a laser focus as opposed to a sniper approach. So a lot of people think niching is kind of restrictive, but I think it provides a lot of opportunity. It allows you to fill certain gaps in the marketplace, targeting and speaking to a specific person rather than trying to appeal to everyone. So guess what? Both work, right? I get it. And the good thing about our industry, even though it's very competitive, is there's a lot of options for a lot of people. And we just chose to speak to more of a high performing individual and not an ex-athlete, not an athletic profile, but a lot of the same qualities you find in high performing people, entrepreneurs, young professionals. They're very similar to athletes. So we always say that we kind of train everyday people like athletes, but we definitely are still working with everyday people. But I've just found it easier to be able to speak to and relate to that type of individual. And I find a lot of people are not out there speaking to them today.
Makes sense. Makes sense. But what do you think about um, you know, being sustainable from the point of scalability? Because when people hear the word niche, it means you're already reducing the target audience or the target market. And then for thriving or for scaling, you need those voices. So what's your opinion on this, Brandon?
Yeah, it definitely can be difficult. You gotta walk the walk and you gotta be good at what you do.
Yeah.
But I do go back to that um, similar comparison. There's a lot of people trying to speak to a lot of people, and a lot of people, will say niching is restrictive, and it is in its own way. You're deliberately narrowing your scope and your area of focus, but it's not as crowded. So I think you can argue it either way, and the question may be is how big you want to scale. If you want to build something in our world to get to 1,000 locations, you definitely need to offer a more wide range, inclusive model that can reach a lot of people. But if your goal, like ours was always, let's open 100 to a 200 great units throughout the United States. We're not trying to open 1,000. If we made a decision, our ownership group, that the end goal was 1,000 units, we probably would have to reconsider how niche we could actually go. Because you are right, there is a certain ceiling with niche concepts, but it's not that that ceiling is less profitable. It's not that it's not easier, it's not harder. It's just a different mechanism to get into your end goal.
Hmm. Yeah, I agree. I agree. Also, um, fitness is full of fads, Brandon. So how do we decide to double down on a science-backed, no nonsense philosophy, and how has this shaped Metabolic's loyalty?
Yeah, well, the funny thing is even though the industry is growing,
Mm.
um, the same things still work, and they always have for hundreds of years. So, the things that have gotten people into the top level of shape are still the things that we are doing, to a degree. 100 years later, we're a lot more educated now. We know a lot more about recovery. The science has just evolved. I mean, science in the last 20 years has done more than it's done in the previous 200. But it's funny when you talk about fads that come and go, it's rarely something new and exciting. It might be a new spin on how to do something, but a lot of ways that kind of happens is it's tied to some pop culture trend versus a fitness trend. Even when you think of, I know cycling has slowed down recently, but it had a big boom 10 years ago. But what a lot of
Mm.
people forget is, I mean, I was cycling as a teenager in the late 90s, and then it kind of went away. And then, as cyclical as our industry is, someone branded it beautifully, gave it a good playlist, put some empowering instructors on the bike, and spinning became a big thing again. I'm sure it will again at some point 10 years from now. It'll just be wrapped up a little bit differently. So yeah, it's competitive, and I think that's why I believe being really good at one thing is it's hard to beat that, right? Because then you don't have to worry about trends that will come and go, where you might
Mm.
try to adopt something that, essentially could alienate the base that built you. So being good at one thing is not too common, but something that's very, very powerful.
Yeah, yeah. I agree. I agree. Because it kind of becomes synonymous with you. And I think that is branding done right as well. So with that, Brandon, many group fitness brands emphasize inclusivity, but you have prioritized structure, accountability, and high standards, of course, from your own journey as a pro athlete. So, how do you balance community with performance driven culture as well?
Yeah, so we kind of do it the opposite way. A lot of companies lead with community and the product kind of comes secondary. And at some point they find their own niche, if you will. But we lead with the product, and that attracts a certain type of people that eventually build that community. So it's just two different ways to look at it. But we start with, the product and what we do on our training floors and within our gyms. And it just seems that if we do what we say we do, if we brand ourselves well, if we align ourselves with the right people, those high performers tend to find you versus you having to go chase a community that doesn't exist.
Mm, yeah, and I can draw parallels with the podcasting as well. So listeners who are seeking both belonging and transformation,
Mhm.
they'll somehow find you. Because I think if the mission, the vision resonates, it's a ripple effect. It's a ripple effect because one person, if is getting that transformation, then there will be 10 more, then 20 more, then 100 more. So I completely, you know, connect with that. Okay, so a bit from a different perspective, Brandon. Um, some argue that fitness should be fun and accessible to all, not rooted in discipline or intensity. So, how do you respond to this idea that metabolic may be too serious for an average person?
No, I think what you said is true. Some fitness products definitely have to be non-intimidating, more welcoming, appeal to a person that's just starting their fitness journey. I 100% agree. I mean, the best fitness concept is the one that gets you off your couch and moving 5 days a week. And if that is something that is not us, that's fantastic. Whatever is driving you in those doors, or out to the hills, or to the road, or to the bike, like, you have to like what you're doing. So I don't disagree with that. I just think that there's also a segment within our population that may have come from a fitness background, and this is not fun is a part of it, but results is a part of it too. So I really just think it's a different type of consumer, but I'm a huge believer that both need to exist. I've never argued that. Like, we compete with people that specialize in an older population that is looking to reclaim their youth, and that's kind of their niche. Well, that's not us, right? And if I tried to act like that company is built to support the exact consumer that needs that kind of support. We're better off targeting the people that are looking for the best out of themselves and are looking for that next level. And we try to cater everything to that individual. But neither, like, I always make sure I don't position this the wrong way. Both are needed and both are right, and both are very lucrative opportunities.
Makes sense. Makes sense. So, if for the listeners, if they wish to take some takeaways, so for an entrepreneur who is very much intentional in building a brand in a niche target market or industry, what are the non-negotiables or the important elements that they should consider before even creating a blueprint or a roadmap for achieving the output?
Yeah, I think clearly defining, I mean, we talked about scale earlier. So clearly defining how big you want to get, I think, is really important. And that will come in waves, right? Like, when we opened our first 10 units, the strategy to get us to the next 10 and the strategy to get us to 50 had to change, right? But in our mind, we did know that our goal was not 1,000 okay or average units. It was 100 to 200 great units. And we're still chipping away at that. And we're about to hit a milestone this year of about 50 units open, probably at the end of Q2. And we know internally the next 50 is going to take a bigger team. It's going to take more capital. It's going to take more resources and more support for our franchisees. So things can change, but I think having a good grasp on where you want to go early on is very important. And then the other thing too that's harder to um, sometimes you learn it on the fly, but entrepreneurship really isn't for everybody. Even business ownership isn't for everybody. So, if you're a person that likes a very predictable schedule on a 9 to 5 and weekends off and evenings off, entrepreneurship might not be for you. And that's completely okay. Especially in your growth years. I mean, you're thinking about your business, you're in your business, and you're growing your business 24 hours a day. And, that takes a different type of individual. And I don't know, it's a hard thing to say. I don't know if people know that until they're in it. But if you're on the fence, I would say proceed with caution because, entrepreneurship is a different animal, in my opinion.
But I agree. I agree. And it may sound like a caveat, but it's more of a it definitely it needs self awareness. It needs clarity, and it's not that easy. Often on various social media or other resources, people would say, "Oh no, I get control. I have my entire time to myself. I decide what to do, how to do, when to do." But entrepreneurship is it's definitely, going down deep into unknown waters and waves out there, unknown depths. So thanks for sharing that, Brand.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, and since you were mentioning about scaling, I also would like to ask this stuff about the franchise model. Often there is probably an opinion or a misconception that franchise model often dilutes the original brand promise. So what guardrails have you put in place to make sure that every metabolic location lives up to the original ethos?
Well, you do what you can do, but there's you're right. Franchising a model, like people ask me what my day-to-day role is. They say, what does a chief concept officer do? And I said, well, really what it is that thing that me and my co-founder created 10 years ago. I have to make sure that 80 to 90% of that stays in place as we grow. And guess what? You make some mistakes. You award some units to people that may have looked good on paper and it doesn't turn out that way. Some things people don't talk about too is like life happens. I mean, COVID was a rude awakening for some individuals and their families. Some people's priority shifts when children are introduced into the mix. So it's not always just like a system is failing. There's a massive human factor that I feel like people in my seat are nervous to talk about. And business ownership is tough. Some fail every once in a while, and what your role is to support those people, and at times it is to find a new buyer, to put a new operator in to help them with the hiring process, and once in a blue moon, locations do fail, and I think that's okay. And it's weird that the franchisors of the world try to take this stance that they have the perfect model that will never fail, and that's a bit of a fallacy, right? But I do think franchisees or people that are interested in a franchise, if you are ever told this is a turnkey model that can't fail, my advice would be to turn and run because that's not a thing. Now, we remove a lot of barriers. We bring a lot of operational support. We've had years, if not decades, of positive changes and mistakes that we make sure you don't make. So it gives you a good runway and a model and a system to build your business on. But at the end of the day, it comes back to that individual, and there are some human factors at play that even the franchise or the most beautifully structured system doesn't really get to control.
Definitely some bold and honest advices out there for our listeners, Brandon. So finally, if they would like to connect with you, what's the best way to do that?
Me on a personal level, I'm very active on LinkedIn, so I shouldn't be hard to find there. Just search my name, Brandon Cullen, or my handle, Playing Guilty, should get you, um, to my main page, and I'm happy to connect with people and communicate via DMs there. It's kind of where I centralize all of my communication just to keep it professional. And it's easy to find MADabolic. Pretty much just put our name anywhere and we'll pop up. So MADabolic.com will kind of get you in front of the entire system, the operations, the franchising opportunities, and we're on all the appropriate social channels, so not hard to find.
Lovely, lovely. Quite a wordplay there with metabolic, Brandon.
Thank you.
Great. I'll have all the details mentioned in the show notes for our listeners. And Brandon, thank you so much for bringing such boldness, honest advices, yet grounded wisdom and powerful presence to the show. Thank you so much.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
And to all of my listeners out there, I know you are walking away with more than just fitness inspiration. You have got your business fuel too. And to everyone, remember that it's not just about building a brand, it's about building your version of excellence. So, as I always say on BizBlend, keep blending purpose with strategy, and I'll see you on next time on BizBlend. Thank you.